All right.
So today we're going to be refreshing your test environment from your production environment. Um, have you already done the transfer of the backups, or have you done any prep work so far?
Yeah, I moved a copy of the yesterday, well, then the 24th, the
Okay.
copy of the online database and the RTL database down to the
Okay.
E drive on our test database.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we'll
Test
pick it up
server.
there then. So if you're able to remote into that server, we can get started. And then the only other things that we'll need to kind of verify is that on your Dory and Ori servers, are they also the EMAS Online servers?
Uh, Dory is our test server. Ori has the online folder, I guess, and then Ori has the databases.
Okay, gotcha.
I have Dory. I mapped the drive so that we can. I mapped the drive so that we can everything we have off of like we need if we need to copy the EMAS Online
Hmm.
folder, we can do that because
Right.
I have it mapped.
Okay, perfect.
Now,
That'll be one of the steps that we'll want to do as well, just to replace the EMAS Online folder. And the other step that we like to do whenever we refresh production to test is also taking a copy of the repository folder and the data folders, which is usually called the EMAS Rec 9 docs or data folder on your file share that's used for EMAS Recruitment Pro. So I don't know if those live on these servers or if you have a separate file server where those ones live.
it's a different server.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, that's mapped too. The one thing that we're running out of space on the E drive, so we might have to, after we restore the backup, so we only got like
Oh,
about 2
wow.
gigs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's
So
probably not going to work. Okay.
yeah,
Well, we
we
do
might need
have,
to.
what we can do is also remove the current databases and just recreate them on the server. And that might free
Yeah,
up a little bit of space too.
I was
But
thinking that,
hopefully your
or once
production
we,
databases haven't grown too much.
yeah, once we restore from the backup, that backup file is like 17 gigs, so we could probably delete that backup file,
Okay, yeah.
which would clear like
Yeah,
17
definitely.
gigs.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start that then. We can go ahead and start that restore.
Do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it, or?
I'm okay driving. I'm okay if you drive. Either way is fine with me.
Let me try it and
Sure.
let me see if I. All right. I think I have an idea of what to do, but I wasn't quite confident enough to do it myself. Right. So expand databases. Right click on EMAS RTL. Tasks. Restore database.
Yep, that's normally the way you do it. However, because we're out of space, I think we probably want to delete the database and just restore it. Do you know, I also see an EMS RTL CV. Do you know if that's used for anything?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Uh,
It's been lost in the ether of time.
yeah. I don't know what that. I was. I haven't been other than being Brad's supervisor. I really never got into
Right.
doing much with. My world revolves around the Oracle
Right.
area. So,
Gotcha. Well, let's leave
so
that guy alone and we'll remove the EMS RTL database. So actually what you want to do is we'll cancel out of this guy here and then
right.
just right click on EMS RTL, tasks, or delete. Yep, perfect. And it's going to ask you about backups. We'll probably want to uncheck that box just in case we want to go back to those. Yep. And now we should be able to right click on databases, just the top one there. Yep. And then restore. And then you should just need to point it at the back file, and then it should, if you, down in the middle there, it'll say from device.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And then you'll just have to populate the name up there for the two database. So if you enter a new name, it'll create it as a a brand new database. Yep. And then we should just be able to hit OK.
Did you have a question, Richard?
Yeah, so where we are now, we're grabbing the backup from Ori.
Yeah, it's the production server,
Right.
but we actually keep our backups on a storage.
So you went out to the,
It's
you did a backup of Ori on another
server. Yeah, that's called Rivendell. And then I copied those down to Dory. So I took the backup files from the other day, and I copied them down to the E drive on Dory. Yeah. Yeah. So click OK.
Yep. Go ahead and click OK. And then it'll probably take some time. You said it's about 18 gigs. So yeah, it'll probably take a little bit of time. While we're waiting for that to finish, though, we can do the EMAS Online folders and the repository and data folders on the file server.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do the file server first.
And you're talking about the EMAS test folder?
I'm assuming so. Do you have access to EMAS test on your desktop that we could verify?
Yes.
Okay. So what we can do is just take a look at the shortcut there. If you right click that guy.
Sorry.
That's all right. And just go down to properties. And it actually looks like it's pointing at that production one as well. Okay, interesting. Let's go ahead and take a look at your C drive. It may have not have been set up originally. And then we'll just take a look in education systems here. Okay, so so you have a prod and then an EMAS Rec 9. Okay. I'm just going to take a look at your config file and see what we see. Okay, so that's your production ones there. And it is going to Ori. Okay, so that looks good. So that's your prod there. Let's take a look at your test.
It should be that EMAS_test folder.
And actually, just for, you know what I'm going to do here? Just for readability, I'm going to create a new folder. Because anytime support comes and helps you with this, they're going to assume that this is your production folder. So we're just going to take a copy of this guy. And we're just going to add it as a new folder and then modify that instead. And that'll just make it easier to differentiate then. For some reason, it won't let me click back on the folder. Would you be able to select that? There we go. All right.
Rename it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just rename it. So everything else looks good. Alrighty, so if we go back here, we have the EMAS folder. Just confirm that here. EMAS repository, EMAS recommended. Okay.
That's production though, right?
Yep, this is production. And we're just gonna overwrite the test.
So you just grab the EMAS Rec 9 docs folder, is that what you grabbed?
Docs and repository. The repository probably isn't strictly necessary at this point, because we can always, apply a new update or things like that. But it's always helpful that anytime you're refreshing production to test that you do the repository as well. That way, if there is a difference in the production repository from the test repository, you're at least starting from the same basis so that you have a similar test case when, for example, you upgrade test and you want to make sure that it's working the same way it would in production. We just want to make sure that all those things kind of work the same way.
Okay.
All right, so EMAS RTL completed. And we're going to do the same thing with EMAS Online.
SQL backups.
Alrighty, so now we've got our EMAS RTL and our EMAS Online databases here. Since we moved SQL Server instances, if you were doing a restore and a backup on the same server, it wouldn't matter. But in this scenario, we've moved from Ori to Dory. So the thing to know about that is that the users, which are SQL users, are not going to, they don't propagate over. It'll look like there's a user there, but it won't actually map to the same user that's created on this server. So even though they have the same names, there's like a GUID behind the scenes and they won't ever match. So it's always important to delete these users out and then we'll re-add them. So the one I'm doing is Doll, which is kind of our standard application user for recruitment and online. So I've deleted them out, and then I'm going to go find Doll here and just re-add the permissions there. So EMAS RTL, DBO. We're just going to do DB owner and make it simple. DBO. And if I had tried to do that mapping before removing those, you'd get an error saying there's already an account there that has the same name. So for whatever reason, they're identified as GUIDs, but it still won't let you do anything with the same name. Alrighty, so let's start with the database changes needed for EMAS Online. And actually, to make this simpler, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to go ahead and and write a script, and that way it's a little bit easier to kind of follow along in the future. So the first one we need to change is this portal alias table. This one's basically used to reference the kind of the URL that's accessed, and if it's not in this table, it'll redirect itself to one of the items that are in here. So we're going to want to update that, otherwise it'll just redirect itself back to production, which we don't want. So we are going to update set HTTP alias equals, and do you know off the top of your head what the internal test URL is?
It looks, in the few things that Brad did put in his documentation, he had a copy of this table from Dory. There's 4 rows, and it looks like, well, 3 rows. One row says localhost / EMAS online as an HTTP alias.
Yeah, the localhost ones are okay to ignore. I think the only one we'll actually have to update is probably the Greyhounds one.
Okay. Well, Nori is a production server too.
Okay, so we can delete it or update it.
There's a dory.test.uindy.edu is other than localhost, there's a dory.test.
Okay, so those are the only ones in there. It's just localhost and then the Dory one?
Yeah, there's 2 localhost ones, one with just localhost, one with localhost / EMAS online, and then there's the Dory test.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just do that. Where portal, hey, oops. Equals 1, and then we will delete Alrighty, so that's basically the extent of the changes that we need to make for EMAS Online. Next, we need to do EMAS RTL. And in this scenario, actually, I take it back. We're going to jump back to EMAS Online. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. Select. I forgot one table. So this one we could do manually in the interface, but it's just easier to do it in the back end. So we are going to update underscore links set URL equals, and I'm forgetting what the syntax is for that. Hang on one second. And we are replacing And you guys don't have a certificate on the internal server, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Alrighty, and we're actually going to run that twice just to take care of HTTP and HTTPS. So what this will do is replace any links that are used inside, and typically those would link up to the applications and things like that. And so we're just swapping out the URLs to make sure that any links created using the other ones will transfer over to the new server. EMAS RTL. I'm just thinking actually we may not need to make any changes, but let's take a look.
Yeah, there's a script that I have, but it looks like it's just dropping the DAO user and stuff.
It's dropping the which one? Sorry?
It's the DAL user.
Oh, okay. So he might have already scripted out basically what I did manually, which is, yeah, dropping out the users. So the only other one that we'll just need to check is EMAS CNS. And I don't think this is going to be applicable. Oops. So there's a value in this table that's used for referencing some of the procedures that are used. So basically in the EMAS RTL database, we're telling it what the name of the EMAS Online database is. However, since you guys have a completely separate test server and you're not running the databases on the same server, they have the same name. So we don't need to make any changes here because it's already EMAS Online.
Okay.
So in this case, I think that's it for our database changes. That looks good. And we'll just save that so you have it for future reference. Alrighty, so next. That one's going to be a while. But let's go back to, let's go do EMAS Online for now. So you said Nori is the web server, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the EMAS Online here, I assume?
Correct.
So we're just going to copy these guys. And then I'm assuming this is the folder here.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm actually just gonna remove this guy completely, except web config, because that should still be valid. And while that's copying, we'll just double check. And yep, Dory, okay, that looks good. Oh, there it goes. I was a little puzzled why it was suddenly skipping on that one. Don't copy. So I'm just going to stop the site, start it back up again. The only other thing we might want to verify is, let's take a look at the application pools. And it's using network service. So we just want to make sure that it has access here. And it doesn't look like it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add give it modify so it's able to create files. Alrighty, so we're still waiting for the network copy to complete here, but actually that looks better than the time it showed earlier. But other than that, the only other outstanding thing to do for the refresh from production to test is just the basically the update of the applications. And actually in your scenario, sorry about that, in your scenario, I don't know that that's applicable either because you're using the same database names. So let's see here. Yes, we want to continue. So anytime we were changing databases, what the general recommendation is to go up and open each one of those applications, edit them and things like that. But in your scenario, I don't think that's, man, it's not fun browsing on the blocked
Server.
Well, no, just that when IE is the enhanced version, it's going to block any scripting resource or whatever else that you guys have. So we're just going to make sure that we can actually log in here and that we don't get any errors. And give me just a minute here. Okay, so it looks pretty good. At this point, I'd say you're ready to go. So the only other thing would just be to let this guy finish, but at this point it's ready for any of your test work that you might have, so upgrades or things like that. The only thing that I'd recommend is, before running, let's say a database script upgrade or something like that, just take a quick backup of the test databases just in case you do encounter any issues. But other than that, I think you guys are ready to go for your test environment. Did you have any questions for me?
I don't from my end. You said you're going to put the recording out on the EMAS U.
Yeah, exactly. We'll upload that under EMAS U. You should have an area in EMAS U that's specific to UIndy, and that'll show up there.
The visual shows up along with the vocal, correct?
Yeah, it should be the full video.
Cool.
Yeah, and you'll see that in your client portal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the drop-down list. Chris, one question that I have is that once they go into the test environment, do they also need to open the application, update the settings, and exit?
I don't think so because of the fact that they're on a server with the same names. So usually the only time you have to go in and edit the applications and update the settings is when you're changing servers, or at least not changing servers, when you're changing database names and structures. In this scenario here, they have basically Dory is, a match for Ori. So the database names are the same, the structures are the same, the users are the same. So in that scenario, there's no internal links to the structures that are going to cause issues for them. For another client that might have, for example, like an EMAS online test database name and an EMAS RTL test database name, then that would be the recommended step, is to go in and edit those applications as well.
Okay, and then the links module, of course, copied in. The links would actually have greyhounds rather than test.
The opposite, actually. So what the replace one is doing is it's looking for this piece of text and replacing it with this one. So all the links should be for Dory.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought that was doing, but just to have it straight in my mind. Perfect. Thank you. And sorry if that was confusing, Heath and Richard. I just...
No, yeah. I got what he was trying to do there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So you'll see that all of these URLs for the links have been updated.
Terrific. Thank you, Chris.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you for bearing with me, guys.
No problem. Thank you for helping us.
No problem. Any other questions?
I don't think so at this point.
All righty. So I think that's good for that part then.